Welcome to online lectures by CA Studies. For more lectures online, please do visit castudies.lk.
I hope so far you all have gone through the first chapter, which is percentages for business, and familiarized yourself with all the formulas, certain mathematical stuff. Actually, it was fully a mathematical related subject chapter. So this chapter, which is equations, is also fully mathematical and very useful, and I think is the highly tested area in your syllabus, because equation is it's the core of business concepts as well, which we will be discussing in this chapter. So the fifth chapter in your syllabus is brought on to be the second for this lecture series, because I thought giving you all a knowledge of the mathematical concepts first and then taking you all through the other business related concepts would be much understandable than you doing it in a memorized way. You shouldn't memorize even formulas. You should be able to understand why the formula exists, because they will probably test you in a tricky way, so understanding is very important. With that, let's start equations, which we will discuss on mathematical rules, linear equations, that means how to create a new equation in a graph, solving equations with one unknown variable, solving equations with multiple unknown variables, or also known as simultaneous equations, and that we can solve using two methods, which is the algebraic method and the graphical method. Graphical method I will cover in chapter 6 probably. It is there as a new chapter in your syllabus as well. So we will cover it there. So just make a note that this will be covered in chapter 6. And then equations in a business context, a summarized version. Alright, so you all might have a lot of knowledge on equations. If you all have at least done your O-levels, obviously you would have learned all of this. So this will be like a revision class for you all. So just go through the tute as I lecture, and let's go through examples. And the examples are more related to like practice revision kit questions. So it's similar, but we will do a few revision kit questions at the end. Alright? Okay. Alright, so first, as mathematical rules, you all might have learned just the signs, how do we say, combination of mathematical signs gives a different output, isn't it? So for example, if you combine plus and, without saying and, okay, just imagine it's and, okay, plus minus, you will get your answer in minus. If you take plus, you will get your answer in plus. Very important to remember, because in your MCQ they might give minus something and plus something. So if you don't figure out the correct function, you might miss out. Okay. So here it's basically the output is minus and plus, and the function is subtract here. Here it's an addition. And then let's say plus multiplied by a minus figure will give you a minus figure. Okay, the function is multiplication. A plus sign divided by a minus sign will give you a minus answer, and that is known as the function is division, but your divided answer will be in minus. Next, minus sign multiplied by minus sign will give you a plus sign. Again, the function is multiplication. What else? And minus sign plus minus sign will give you a minus answer, minus signed answer, but the function is addition. Very important, here it's changing because minus and minus, if you get it together, the function is addition, but you have to give a minus sign for the answer. Okay, and what else? Plus and minus, plus and plus is plus. Yeah, so basically this is one set of rule you need to remember. So yeah, and also when it comes here, if we can say the function is minus, right? Now I said minus here. Now this is the sign, but this sign should be for the large number. Okay, large number of these two, this or this. Example, plus 50 minus 100. What will be your answer? The function plus and minus will be subtraction. Subtraction means 100 minus 50 will be 50, right? 50. And what will be the sign? The sign will be your large number. Large number is between 100 and 50, 100. What is the sign of 100? Minus. So you put minus. So this is very important. In your exam, in the MCQ, they might give you plus 50, not by such a calculation, in a different calculation which includes these type of rules for you to apply. Then you should choose minus 50, because if you finally, when solving your equation, if you get a situation like this, the large number sign will only prevail. Alright, so make sure to include this correct sign. So that is a basic mathematical concept. I hope you all are aware of it, but just refresh your theory on that. Alright, next we will see some other signs. So other signs are opposite sign rules. Opposite sign rules. So if you, I will explain as we go through the chapter where do we apply this opposite sign rule. Just remember, the opposite of plus is minus. Okay. Opposite of multiplication is division. Opposite of division is again multiplication. Opposite of brackets, what do you mean by brackets? If they give something like this, 2 into A, let's say, something like this. What is the meaning? The sign here, what do you think the sign here is? It is 2 multiplied by A. Alright, so that is the multiplication I mentioned here. So this will be meant by or represented by a multiplication sign. Therefore, the opposite of a multiplication sign is division. So the opposite of a bracket is also division. And then x squared. In case if you have something to the power, this means in your calculator you will be writing like this. For example, let's say this is 2 to the power 2. I hope you all are aware of this. In this case, it will be root x will be the opposite, which is, if you write without this sign, it will be x to the power half. Alright, so these are rules that you should remember when it comes to opposite signs. Just keep in mind, you have to memorize this actually. Plus, minus, and then I'll tell you all the application, then you all will get what I was trying to say. Now, let's see how we can create equations using given facts and figures. Okay, by how to create an equation, which is called linear equations. Okay, we are going to create only linear equations, right? So there are non-linear ones as well, but that's not applicable for this. We will learn only about linear equations. Alright, okay. First, let's go with the example. Smith takes 15 minutes to walk 1 mile. Step 1, I've given, identify the variables of the situation. Alright, so the question they ask is, how long does it take to walk 2 miles? Okay, so obviously now without creating an equation itself, you must be having an idea as to what the answer is. But in an equation, when creating an equation, the first step we need to follow is identifying the variables of the situation. Okay, now what will affect our decision? Minutes and distance, because miles now they are asking. So basically distance is miles and this is the time. So these are 2 variables. Step 2 is identify the variable that depends on another. Okay, so now does distance depend on time or does time depend on distance? Is what we need to look at when it comes to step 2 in identifying the dependent and independent variable. Next, we assign a letter to each of the variable. Step 3, assigning a letter. So, I am going to say time, since it's the dependent variable, you can give any letter, but the most common letter for a dependent variable is Y. Okay, so it will be Y. And the most common letter for an independent variable is X. Okay, remember that. Or else you could give A, B, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, so having done that, next step is to identify values. Okay, in step 4 we are going to learn a new theory, that is linear equations. Remember, very, very important. I'll mention it I'll highlight it. linear equations go in one particular format only, which is y equals mx plus c. But in your book they have given y equals bx plus a. So as I said, the letters doesn't matter, even the y and x it doesn't matter, but the x axis is you should remember what is the x axis or the independent variable axis and what is the dependent variable axis. Right. So the equation y equals, let's go with the book equation, bx plus c. Now y is the dependent variable, x is the independent variable. B is the change in dependent variable, that is y divided by change in independent variable x. I'll explain what it is. It is the point of a slope. Okay, point of a slope. I'll explain what it is. And C is when independent the fixed amount. Okay, fixed amount means when independent variable is 0. Independent variable is 0. The dependent variable's value. This is the fixed value. Okay. Now let's see it how we can show in a graphical way. Then you will understand the next steps that we do. Right. So step 4, right? We are at step 4. Now, I said, so we desire, now, if you take y equal bx plus c, it looks like this, okay? If you draw a graph, this also. So this is minus x side, this is the minus value of y, this is the plus value of y. Now don't go yx is how we used to memorize as from, I think since school, since when you are like around grade 5 or something, you get to do this. But like just remember, this is the independent side and this is the dependent side. Okay, and here is 0. Right. So, and these are plus. So if you draw the graph, you might know. So this will be like in graph papers like 1, 2, 3, something like that. A number range. If you are going in ones, 1, 2. This is just for an example. Alright. Now let's jot down where this B, what is the B and what is C, and how we draw the line of y equals bx plus c. Because you might know a linear any equation can be drawn on a graph. Because that's the purpose of actually creating an equation, because we need to find unknown values. Okay, so yeah. Now y is your dependent variable. So let's take an example where we just discussed. Let's go with that example for you to understand. Now we said y equals the time and x equals the distance. So x means independent and y is dependent. That's the definition. Don't go with your letters. So x is distance. You can name it distance, and y is time. In an equation now, you always must present an equation with the figures b and c. You must never give an equation without the figures b and c. It's a must. Alright. So, b, what is the formula? Change in y divided by change in x. Okay. Now, you might know, let's say, a point here. If I mark a point in a graph over here, this is known as 2 and 2, where x is 2 and y is 2. So first we write the x value and then only we write the y value. So now in this case, in our question where Smith takes 15 minutes to walk 1 mile, so let's assume the y-axis goes in tens, okay? So that we can, because the board isn't enough to get all the figures in. So let's say in 5, 10, 15. And in minus 5, minus 10, minus 15. Okay. So this is the distance in miles and this is in minutes. If you are to mark the situation in a graph, for 1 mile, he took 15 minutes here. So, this is the point where you should mark, which you should mark. Alright, this is the point which you should mark. At zero distance, will there be a time? No, because he didn't walk. It's just 0. No movement. So there's for that particular stop, there is no time genuinely. We know that, right? So this point we call it 0, 0, where x is 0 and y is 0. Now see, it changed, isn't it? If you draw a line, so from 0 to 1, he moved. When he moved, the time he spent increased from 0 to 15 minutes. And therefore, we will have to draw a line like this, because to just graphically present it. Okay. So this point is 0, 0, and this point, how I told you all to write? First of all, the x's value and then the y value. X value is 1, y's value is 15. Now, given the points, we can start calculating the value of b. B is change in y. You can say change, you can represent by this, in y divided by change in x. The y's point changed, okay, y's point changed from 0 and 0, I mean we would say x and y's, okay. This point can be represented by two variables, and so x and y's point change from 0 and 0 to 1 and 15. So y's value changed from 0 to 15, whereas x value changed from 0 to 1. So first I said in percentage changes, the new price minus the old price we must use. So the new y value, okay, is 15. The old y value is 0. Right. Change in x, the old value of x is 0, new value is 1. What's the answer? 15 divided by 1 is equal to 15. Next, we have to find, I told you, it's a must in the equation to show the values of B and C. We found the value of B, now we will have to find the value of C. C is this. When the independent variable is 0, what is y? When independent variable is 0, what is the independent variable? Distance. It's 0. If it's 0, y also, we naturally know it will be 0, because obviously there can't be a time when there is no distance. So, therefore, if you am to like show you in a formula, so far we have obtained by finding the value of B, we can write y equals, B is 15, now first of all y equals bx plus c, now we write, so now 15x plus c, now c is what we need to find. Okay, now c is a situation when independent variable is 0, that means the dependent variable is no longer depending on the independent variable. They are only depending on themselves, like depending on themselves. They are fixed. They won't change because of any other action or any other movement in distance. So how to find C is, now so far we have found that y equals 15x plus c. I told you the value of B and C must be represented in a linear equation. So y equals 15x plus c is so far what we found, where 15 is B. Now step 1, select a point on the graph, on the line of the graph, and substitute to the equation in order to find C. Now the point in a graph is 1 and 15 we can take, because we know surely that when they traveled 1 mile, they spent 15 minutes. So if you substitute, now this is, I told you, this is the x figure and this is the y figure. When x equals 1, y equals 15. So y is 15. 15 multiplied by x is 1. Also I told you in the beginning, 15x means what? There is no gap. If there is no gap, I told in the bracket thing, so it means 2 multiplied by the value of the bracket. So same theory here, it means a multiplication, okay. So 15 multiplied by 1 plus c. Therefore 15 multiplied by 1 plus c minus 15, because you no need to say multiply by 1, minus 15, and you minus 15 over here. In solving equation we will come to that. So c equals 0. C equals 0. It's obvious, right? By common sense also we know that when independent variable is 0, dependent variable is also 0. So by the formula also we found that when x equals 1 and y equals 15, there is no value for c because it goes through the midpoint. This is called the midpoint, okay? Midpoint. Therefore, we can conclude our linear equation will be y equals 15x plus 0, which means y equals 15x. This is the answer for the question. Now they are asking what will be the time taken if Smith travelled 2 miles. If he travelled 2 miles, we have to apply to the formula. So x will be 2 because x is the distance travelled. So if x is 2, y equal 15 multiplied by 2, which is 30. Alright. So if you have to mark in the graph, when x equals 2, y equal 30, somewhere around here, right? So that goes straight. See, it's a straight line. Downwards also, if you put points, it will come straight, but goes through 0 and 0. Then you name this graph as y equal 15x. This is the name of your line. Alright, but you don't have to do it in the exam. What you will be expected in the exam is to actually create the equation and they might ask changes in the distance, how it will affect your time, what is the, like as we discussed right now, same that type only they'll ask. But I did this for you to refresh your memory on how the graph works and so that you will understand what we are discussing, right? Right. Also, I told that b equals change in y divided by change in x, and also I mentioned that it's the point on a slope. Point on a slope means, you see this one, let me mark it with a different pen. This is a slope, isn't it? A slope is like I think you might know what's it. So it looks like this, right? A point in a slope is called the gradient. Okay, it's called gradient. Gradient, usually in maths you might come across, we write it's denoted as n. But here you could change it. So it's denoted in your syllabus as b. Okay, a point in the gradient, not the entire line. But there is no gradient at point 0 because it's here there is no slope. Because the reason is there is no slope. As a result, there will not be a gradient at the point 0. That is just, so that's why we say it is a point on a slope rather than saying it's the point on a line. Okay, line goes through 0, but a slope doesn't create in a zeroed position. All right. This can be, you might feel it's about too much, about maths, mathematical approaches, but this is, I told you all these so that you have the entire picture on what this equation is. So that it's very easy for the other lessons because it's all linked with equations. It will be very easy. Okay, so just remember what I told. Okay, just keep in mind. Fine. So with that we finish how to derive a linear equation. Okay, now let's look at the next example, which is on linear equation itself, just to see if you got it properly. You all can practice, so it's good to do one more. A salesperson weekly wage is made up of a basic weekly wage of 100 rupees and a commission of 5 rupees for every item they sell. Derive an equation that best describes the scenario. Step 1. Identify your variables. Identify variables. That is, we have weekly wage, commission and item. Step 2. Identify the dependent and independent variable. Now, they get a weekly wage which is 100 rupees, and that is not affected by anything. If they work for a week or if they don't work for a week also, no problem, they will be paid 100 rupees. It's like annual leave, like it's been paid for us. Okay, so that is a fixed item. Weekly wage is a fixed item. Now this is a new thing. We didn't see that in the previous steps, isn't it? So in the previous step we only saw a dependent and an independent variable because our fixed, what was our fixed amount in the equation? It was 0 because C is the fixed amount, right? So it's 0. It was 0. In this case it doesn't seem so because the scenario says that they will get the salary, they work or not, weekly they will get. That is 100 rupees. So we can conclude in the glance itself that since it is fixed, this must be C of the equation. Okay, what's the dependent variable? Commission. Why? Commission amount differs based on the number of items sold. So, number of items sold is an independent variable because it doesn't change based on anything else, but commission changes based on the number of items because they are paid on an item basis. 5 rupees for each item they sell. So, 5 rupees per item. Now, step 3, assign a letter. So, I would say fix, so the weekly wage is C. Let me do step 3 here. Weekly wage is C. This is the dependent variable which is popularly known as Y. It should be in the Y axis and it can be denoted by Y. And the independent variable can be denoted by X but must be in the X axis, horizontal line. Fine. Then step 4. The final step. Find the figures for B and C. B we know change in Y is divided by change in X is B, the gradient. Remember I told point of a slope mentioned there, it's called the gradient. So, gradient equals so change in y divided by change in x. They didn't give us any other detail. We can't apply constant point because it doesn't have a slope. The constant we didn't come across in the previous question. So it will look like on a graph x and y, it will be here because when x is 0, what is y? 100 is over here. So your graph will somehow cut like this. It won't go through 0 because the constant is 100 and it is 100 when the independent variable is 0. Independent variable is x. Therefore, when x is 0, what is y? 100. Fine. So, change in y. Now, at this point, there is no slope, right? So, there is no, we can't use it to find, right? Because also we don't have another point as well. Okay, but they have given us a hint saying that commission is 5 rupees per item. Now 5 is the y-axis and item is the x-axis, isn't it? Because items we gave it's the independent variable denoted by x. 5 is the dependent variable denoted by y. Therefore, we can write the change is 5 and the change when the change in x is 1. Because when item changes by 1 unit, commission or y-axis changes by 5 rupees. So, no need to see the difference, directly we can take the value and therefore it will be 5. Okay. Then what is C? We know C is 100 by the look of it. The fixed component that doesn't change by the independent variable, which is the number of items, or the dependent variable, which is the commission. Now write your formula. Therefore, y equals, we know what is b, 5x plus, this is a plus 100, so we say plus 100. Okay, so this will be your linear equation for the second example. Now just look at this graph. I am going to tell you all the type of linear equations you might receive. Now this one, y equal 5x plus 100 goes like this, in this graph, in this line. Okay, its style is this. Y equals, if anything goes through the midpoint, that is called y equals bx. Okay, the previous example that we discussed. If it's this way, the gradient is minus. Y equal minus 5x plus 100, where b is minus. And another situation, so if it goes this way, where our y, our constant c is a minus because it is below 0, because this is the minus y axis. Then this line's equation will be y equals, gradient is the same because the slope is this way. What the slopes that are this way is always a plus. See, a plus. So it will be as usual bx, which is a plus, but your constant becomes minus, because our usual way of writing is y equals bx plus c, but in this case bx plus minus c. Plus and minus, the resulting answer will be in minus. So you'll write minus c, bx minus c. So this, you should remember this very well. Okay. Alright. With this we finish off completely linear equations and then equations in a graph. Now we look at solving equations with one variable.
Thank you for watching the video. Stay tuned with castudies.lk for more lectures online.